Hey guys, some stupid sketch show guy here with another prehistoric figure review, and today's prehistoric figure review is going to be a blast from the past as we take a look at a museum line figure. But it's not going to be from the Carnegie Natural History Museum line, it's instead going to be all the way in Massachusetts, as we are going to be reviewing the Battat Boston Natural History Museum Carnotaurus. And before we get into the review, many of you might be wondering, what's with this paint scheme? As the more popular color scheme that this figure is given is this gray and red version. This is actually the second iteration of this sculpt. This is the first one, released in 1998, towards the end of the Boston Natural History Museum line. And soon after that, it was discontinued, and is now considered incredibly rare. While this is the more commercially viable version, as this is available on Amazon for like $10. This goes for $60 on eBay at best. But does a flashy new paint scheme and over 2 decades worth of history really make this figure worth 6 times more than its contemporary? Let's get into the review. So first and foremost, we will be going over the major change and the most important and defining feature of a Battat Carnotaurus, its paint job. And this paint job is truly glorious, being very akin to the Demon Carnotaurus, except with a bit of switcheroo. With the Demon Carnotaurus being mostly black with red, this one is red with black on top. And it truly is amazing. The colors are super flashy and absolutely gorgeous. The red circle around the eye is a nice touch, but I'd say that these two colors are applied to perfection, with an amazing black on the top and a flashy red on the bottom, making the dark colors pop and making the red colors show off their poppiness even more as well. It's such a simple yet very well applied paint scheme, with the horns and the toenails being a sort of yellowish color. A nice natural color for a horn or nail. That is nice, but not majorly important, as the red and black is what is really what's up. And compared to the Terra by Battat Carnotaurus, this is significantly better. This paint scheme is still pretty good, but I'd say that it definitely pales in comparison to this glorious beast. And with that, I would say that the Battat Carnotaurus, on paint scheme alone, gets a 9 out of 10 for me. But with its defining and greatest feature out of the way, how do its other 3 categories compare? Let's find out. Next up, we have the pose, which is a slightly weaker part of this figure, but actually is still quite good, as the pose on its own is very graceful, and that is a good feature to describe a Carnotaurus, as the legs are very long, showing it almost in stride as it moves in a very long and, more importantly, speedy-looking manner. The creature looks appropriately fast with how long its legs look, and how long the legs are separated. It does look like it could take a lot of ground with just a single step. It's a very nice feature, and the crooked neck does also help a lot, making the figure look like it's scouring for food, with its long legs making it look like it's in a hurry to chase down some game. The only part, though, that isn't super great, though, is its tail. Its tail is obviously not the greatest. For stability issues, it is supposed to help balance it. And you know what? I will give it credit. It does do that job appropriately. And the only reason why I bring that up is because the Terra by Battat one doesn't. The Terra by Battat version has the tail lifted off the ground so it can't be stable. And even when you do put it on its tail, well, mine came in warped, so yeah, it doesn't really matter. So for the fact that the figure can actually stand, I would say that its pose is significantly better, even if it does take away from some of its scientific accuracy by having the tail point down. But that's for the next category. Overall, I'd give the pose a 7.5 out of 10. And speak of the devil, next up is scientific accuracy, which many people would probably brace for impact for, considering that this figure is over 20 years old, but despite such age, the figure actually proves to be one of the best scientifically accurate Carnotaurus models, which is incredibly impressive considering its age. But, then again, Carnotaurus is a little easier to get right in 1998 when there has been no new Carnotaurus skeletons since 1984. But that's besides the point. The figure is impressively accurate. Its neck is nice and long, which is true to Carnotaurus, since Carnotaurus did have a long neck for a theropod. The osteoderms are well applied and also very accurate. Its legs are well applied. It's proportioned very nicely. Its skull is flawless. And overall, the body is very true to Carnotaurus. This is a scientifically accurate Carnotaurus with only a few things that are wrong. And those few things are its fingers and its tail. First, let's get rid of the tail. The tail here is physically impossible for a Carnotaurus to achieve, as a Carnotaurus is infamously one of the most stiff-tailed dinosaurs. This also interfered with its agility during running, so it couldn't take sharp turns while it ran. So, it is impossible for a Carnotaurus to be able to bend its tail like this without it breaking, as it is very, very stiff. For the fingers, the finger count is completely wrong. If you look in close, there are only 3 digits, and Carnotaurus is well known to have 4 digits, a defining trait of an abellisaurid. And as well as that, the arm posture is wrong, as a Carnotaurus would have its arms point backward, and at best, it could only move them outwards rather than downward due to how inflexible its shoulder blade was. But that is all I could find that is wrong with this figure, and its body is overall incredibly up to date, and this is only made more impressive by the figure's age. For that, I give the scientific accuracy of this figure a 9 out of 10. And lastly, we have the detail. And the detail is probably the thing on this figure that has aged the worst, as the detail is, while still good, it does have its issues. The best part of the detail is definitely the osteoderms. The osteoderms are big and pointy, and they give you something to look at other than its smooth skin, which is very nice and definitely makes it so the figure isn't too smooth, which is a problem with a lot of 1990 figures. But if you look past the osteoderms, the overall body detail could be better. You don't really see many good individually sculpted scales, but you do see very nice grooves. And these grooves are good, but individually sculpted scales are definitely what the norm is now. But even if the scales aren't individually sculpted, the grooves do look very, very nice, almost crocodilian in some cases. So it definitely isn't all bad, although the legs are completely and utterly smooth. Which, I mean, it is kinda true, but it's not exactly the greatest. And then we move up to the mouth. The mouth is actually a pretty good part of this detail. Even though the teeth are a bit stubby, if you look closely into the figure's mouth, you can actually see a sculpted tongue, which is a very nice detail indeed. And if you look onto the face does have some solid enough grooves, but for the most part, it is smooth with some small little scales. It's decent, but it's not perfect. With that, I would give the detail on this figure a 6.5 out of 10. So now time for my final thoughts. The paint job on this figure is truly amazing. The pose of this figure is not perfect, but is stable enough, unlike its successor. Its scientific accuracy is incredibly up to date for any figure, and especially impressive for a figure that is over 2 decades old. Its detail, while not perfect, is also still very nice and has some good parts of it that do truly pop. And for my final rating, I give the Battat Boston Natural History Museum Carnotaurus an 8 out of 10, and the sketchy seal of approval. Hope you guys enjoyed this prehistoric figure review. Comment down which one you do prefer, the Battat Carnotaurus or the Terabyte Battat Carnotaurus. And comment down what figures I should review next time. And, speaking of which, see you guys next time. Bye.